Hi, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to talk about entrepreneurship. Yesterday we made a video about the first two lessons in the entrepreneurship part 1, and today we're going to go over lesson 3 in entrepreneurship part 1. We're going to be talking about communication skills. Now, all of these lessons will lead you up to the becoming an entrepreneurship test. Okay, let's get started. As you see in the slide, write your address at the top of the letter. Don't include your name because your name will be written in the closing. Include only your street address, city, state, and zip code. A date line should be used to indicate when the letter was written. You should always date your letters, as it may be necessary to refer back to the letter at a later time. If you're writing someone whose company is within the United States, use the American date format, such as shown on that slide. The date should be 2 inches from the top of the page. Also, depending on the format, the date should be either left justified, which is when the text is aligned along the left margin, or centered. In writing a formal letter, it's best to address the letter to a specific individual. Use the person's last name along with the proper title like Dr., Mr., Mrs., or Miss. If you are unsure of the woman's title, use Miss, capital M-S. Avoid misspelling the person's or company's name. Misspelling decreases the impact of the letter, no matter how well the letter itself may be written. The salutation, which is a formal greeting used in a letter, should contain the same name used in the address. You may also use the person's first name only if you know the person very well and typically refer to them by their first name. In general, use the appropriate title in the person's last name followed by a colon. If you do not know the gender of the person to whom you are writing, you can use the person's full name. The body of your letter should begin with a friendly opening, followed by a statement of the purpose of your letter. The paragraphs that follow should elaborate on the main point, providing background information or any other details that will aid the reader. It is vital that you maintain a positive and optimistic tone in the body of your letter, even if your letter contains bad news. A positive tone is far more effective and gets more accomplished. The letter should contain non-threatening language that will persuade the reader to respond in the way that you desire. Be sure that if you are making a request, it is clear and concise. It's very important to remain polite in writing the body of your letter. Do not express anger and do not insult the person you are writing. Deal with any complaints professionally and be especially polite in writing letters containing bad news. The closing should correspond with the content of the letter. For example, if the letter is a complaint you are making about receiving the wrong order, do not use the closing "warm regards." The closing should be followed by a comma. Also, 4 lines should be left between the closing and the sender's name, allowing space for the signature of the sender. One of the most important things to do when you finish writing a letter is to proofread it. A misspelling or a grammatical error, which is an incorrect usage of grammar, can ruin the effect of any letter, so it's best to check your work. Some of the words to end your letter could be with sincerely, many thanks, warm regards, sincerely yours, best regards, respectfully yours, cordially, with anticipation. In addition to business letters, there's also another written form of communication that you might use, which is called a memorandum or simply a memo. And this is just a short written document with a set format. Now, the format of a memo includes who the memo is from, who it is for, the date, and the subject of the memo. An inter-office memo is a memo between employees of the same company. They can be sent many ways: by email, by hand, and by fax. Now, I hope you're paying attention to the terms that are being highlighted at the bottom of your screen, because these are probably going to be on your test. So they just threw 2 at you that you're likely to see on the test, which is memorandum or memo, which is the same thing, or an inter-office memo. And you may need to know the difference in just a plain memo and an inter-office memo. Speaking skills, telephone conversations. For entrepreneurs, a lot of their communication is done over the telephone, and how they present themselves in day-to-day conversations has a large impact on the success of the business. In handling business transactions over the telephone, there are certain things that entrepreneurs should always strive to do. One of those is to speak clearly. The person you are talking to should be able to hear you clearly. Be polite and cheerful. It's important to be respectful to the person you're speaking to and do not interrupt. Everyone prefers to deal with somebody who's happy and respectful. Think about what you're going to say before you make the phone call. If you have questions you need to ask, write them down. If you have certain topics you want to discuss or points you need to make notes to consult them during the phone call. Take notes during the call. This is very important. During the call, a lot of information may be covered and it may be difficult to remember everything that you need to remember. So it's very important to take notes. Now, in meetings with customers and suppliers, as an entrepreneur, you will have face-to-face contact. Entrepreneurs have to meet with customers, employees, and suppliers. They have formal meetings that require agendas and handouts, and they have informal meetings where they discuss issues or provide information. There are several things you can do to make the most of your face-to-face contact. You need to always shake hands and make eye contact. Be confident and polite. Show an interest in what the person you are meeting with has to say. You can show that you are interested by asking questions or by answering their questions. Listen carefully and speak at the appropriate times. Speak clearly. Speaking clearly is a main factor of how to communicate effectively. It's important to remember not cuddle your knife as you talk and to speak loud enough for the person to hear you. Do not rush during the meeting. If you find that you do not have enough time to meet, it's best to apologize for having another commitment and just schedule another time. Always thank the person at the end of the meeting. Thank them for taking the time to meet with you and let them know you look forward to seeing them again. Listening skills. Many problems often occur because people fail to listen. As an entrepreneur, you will need to listen to the people around you. You will need to listen to employees, bankers, suppliers, and customers. There are some tips that can help you improve your listening skills. Focus your attention on the person who is speaking. Do you hate to be talking to somebody and have their eyes wandering around the room looking at what everybody else is doing? Don't do that. Focus your attention on the person who is talking. Try to understand the person and think about what they are saying. Ask questions to ensure you understand what the person is saying. And take notes again, just so you can remember what's being said. Thanks for sticking in there with me. Now, tomorrow we're going to have lesson 4, so we can be getting you ready for that test, becoming an entrepreneur. So that's all for today. See you tomorrow.